VonAllen Sports.
There is big news out of the NFL this morning where the league is investigating bounty programs where players are paid for knocking opponents out of games. The league is meeting with Gregg Williams today. Williams admits he ran such a program as the New Orleans Saints' top defensive coach, where Saints players reportedly paid each other thousands of dollars for knocking out players like quarterback Kurt Warner. Several players have said other teams also had bounty programs.
So NFL Today, CBS News special correspondent JB James Brown from Atlanta, CBS Sports NFL analyst Shannon Sharpe. Good morning. Shannon, does the punishment fit the crime?
I think it does. I think the commissioner was severe in his penalties for two reasons. There's litigation right now that the NFL is being sued by 500 to 700 former players and their families for concussions and concussion-related symptoms. The NFL had to take a stand and say, we do not promote this, we do not condone this, and once we found out about it, we put a stop to it immediately. Second and foremost, I think the main reason was, throughout this investigation, you heard the commissioner talk. When he sent his people down to the New Orleans Saints and asked them about this bounty program, Mickey Loomis, Sean Payton, they blatantly lied to his face. The 50,000-page documents tell you the NFL was thorough in their investigation. And not only did they lie to his face, he told them to stop it if it was going on, and they continually went behind his back and did it. And when he asked them about it again, they lied again. Mm-hmm. And he said one thing when he took the office. He said, I'm going to hold coaches and upper management to a higher standard than I hold the players, and I hold the players to a very high standard.
So it's interesting the points that Shannon brings up, JB, because there's been some talk about, well, this is really just a business decision and we sort of have to, show our muscle. But as Shannon lays it out and everything else that happened, it does go far beyond that.
Oh, there's no question about it. I mean, Shannon said it quite succinctly. They lied to the commissioner and he was not going to stand for that.
But does it stop after this?
No, you know what? It's going to be interesting. There is a move afoot now, as Armin will tell you, that the commissioner is expecting players and organizations to sign a letter indicating that a pay-for-performance program will not continue. Let's be clear. It's been going on for time and since time immemorial in terms of guys putting money in a kitty to make big plays, momentum-changing plays, if you will. The difference here and that which is so egregious is that the aim of the bounty program and all that word denotes is to aim, to maim, to injure, and to knock a guy out of the game to end his career. That can't be tolerated.
I mean, I was reading this morning again, this memo that was sent out yesterday, and I said to JB, you can actually feel the steam coming off of this thing. They are so upset, this deliberate, and I wrote it down, deliberate effort to conceal the program's existence by Sean Payton, lying to the commissioner's face repeatedly and going to his assistant coaches saying, we've got to get our ducks in a row when this investigation was going on. That just is not going to work.
So heretofore, where some of the coaches around the league were shocked, thinking that maybe it was a bit heavy-handed, once all the facts became known, I didn't find a coach who disagreed with the punishment that was meted out. And again, Shannon just laid it out. But I like to hear Shannon as well, too, because, again, there seems to be a move afoot where it's not unusual to expect pay for performance. You give some special teams players, you incentivize them to stop a team inside the 20-yard line without getting esoteric. Shannon, that went on for a while.
Shannon.
And it's still going on, and it's always going to go on, JB. And I heard one of my colleagues, I think that was Boomer's voice, saying you get a guy to try to injure a guy to play harder for $1,000. Those same guys play harder to get Monday and Tuesday off and not have to show up to work until Wednesday. It's not, I don't really think it was so much the money. It's the thing of being called out in front of your team and said, hey, we won this game because this guy had the game-changing play. JB, I remember I was in the 8th grade. We were playing a team and my coach called a timeout because we couldn't stop their running back. He said the next player that tackled this guy by himself, I'm taking him out of the ball game. He said, I want 5 Rydales on this guy every single time. He was their best player. He said, I don't want you to hit him dirty. He said, I want you to hit him every single time, 5 to 6 guys. The guy went out the ball game. We end up winning the ball game. You always try and take, through the scope of the game, the rules of the game, you always try to take the best player away from his team.
There's some controversy about how they found out about this. What do you know about that?
I know enough. A lot has been said about this, but Charlie, there was a lower level employee within the organization, an ex-employee who was disgruntled because of the way he was treated or not treated by Sean Payton and Gregg Williams. And he was the one who went to the league and provided them with the documentation that gave the footing, if you will, to the league office to be able to pursue this and have unquestioned evidence that this program existed.
So you're saying employee, not former player?
Employee, not a former player.
Shannon?
And that's my only problem. Why didn't he come forward when it was going on? Why only after you were not an employee or no longer affiliated with the New Orleans Saints? I don't have a problem. This was something that needed to be stopped. I'm glad we got the commissioner came down very hard on all those that were involved. But my only problem is, JB, when you were reaping the fruits of this labor, you never came forward. You never had a problem. You never would have said anything as long as you were still gainfully employed by the New Orleans Saints. It was once only after you became disgruntled or upset at Sean Payton or Gregg Williams for whatever reasons that you felt that you needed to compel to share this.
Same type of story, just a different environment. It's human nature.
Yeah, but
Speaking of human nature, Tim Tebow's coming to New York. We've listened to the bad side of the NFL. Here is the side of the NFL that everybody gets excited about. Tebow, a New York Jet from the New York Post. Gangrene gets Tebow. So what do you make of this?
Shannon is going to be pretty strong on that one. Let me hear.
Shannon, let's hear you on this.
I think this was something that had to be done. I commend John Elway because change is very unpopular, especially when it's been successful. This was a young man that came in for the Broncos. They were 1-4. He leads them to the AFC West division title. He wins a playoff game. But John Elway felt Mr. Bolin also had to sign off on this because this was a huge commitment that in order for them to win a championship moving forward, Peyton Manning, if at any chance could be their quarterback, he needed to be their quarterback. And I understand. And people are like, well, why won't they keep Tebow to let him learn up under Peyton Manning? My grandfather JB used to always tell us, he says, as long as the lions and the elephants are in town, so is the circus. Okay. They had to remove this equation.
By the way, Shannon will be here with a lot of Shannon-isms that you guys will love.
Which we love.
The circus is coming to New York.
Yes, it is.
More about this another day. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, JB.
Yeah, another one of those. This is for my nigga Q, down to earth. Rest in peace, baby. You know how we roll. What they don't know is the bullshit, the drama, the thugs, the tears, the hugs, the love, the slugs, the funerals, the wakes, the churches, the coffin, the dirt, the rain, the jerk, the fame, the work, the game, the friends, the foes, the bins, the hoes, the studios, the shows, comes and it goes. The jealousy, the envy, the phony, the friendly, the one that gave them the slugs, the one that put them in me. The snakes, the grass, too long to see, the lawnmower, sit right next to the tree. What we seeing is the streets, the cops, the system, harassment, the options, get shot, go to jail, or get your ass kicked. The lawyers, the part, they are of the puzzle, the release, the warning, try not to get in trouble. The snitches, the eyes, probation, parole, the new charge, the bail, the warrant, the hold, the cell, the bus, the ride, up north, the greens, the boots, the yard, you caught, the fighting, the stabbing, the pulling, the grabbing, the riot squad with the captain, nobody knows what happened. The 2 years in a box, revenge, the plots, the 23 hours that's locked, the 1 hour that's not, the silence, the dark, the mind, so fragile, the wish that the streets would have took you when they had you, the days, the months, the years, this. This here is all about my wife, my kids, the life that I live. Through the night, I was his. It was right what I did. My ups and downs, my slips, my falls, my trials and tribulations, my heart, my balls, my mother, my father. I love them, I hate them. Wish God I didn't have them, but I'm glad that he made them. The roaches, the rats, the strays, the cats, the guns, knives, and bats. Every time I scrap, the hustling, the dealing, the robbing, the stealing, the shit hit the ceiling. Little boy with no feelings, the frustration, rage, trapped inside a cage. The affiliate was riding with me. The dark, the light, my heart, the fight, the wrong, the right, it's gone.
The punishment has been handed down by NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell as these Saints players have been suspended. Jonathan Vilma most notably for the entire season, all 16 games. Anthony Hargrove, who now plays for the Packers for half of the season. Will Smith, defensive end of the Saints, the first 4 games. By the way, the Saints open up at home against RG3 and the Redskins. And then Cam Newton's the second game for the Saints defense to prepare for. Scott Fujita now on the Browns, 3 games. Tim Hasselbeck, Merril, Hodge, Jason Babin is here, a member of course, the Players Union. What's your reaction to this big news?
Obviously they're trying to set an example that they don't want any bounty pools on the quarterbacks or anyone else for that matter.
Any kind of incentive programs in the Eagles locker room? You guys don't put $100 on the board and say, hey, 3 sacks, it's yours? Anything?
No, Andy keeps a really tight ship there, as you guys know.
How, has the union been in contact with you about this issue, with its players?
It's something that everyone's kept pretty close watch on, and it's no one wants to get suspended. I know these guys that were suspended, and they'd rather be playing than sit on the sideline. So it's it's a slippery slope.
Merril, Hodge, good to see you again. First, we've heard from you since this news came down. What's your reaction?
Well, I think that, it's consistent with what went on with the coaching staff. So I'm not shocked by Jonathan Vilma being suspended for the entire season. I mean, at the end of the day, Jason's a gatekeeper. He's a gatekeeper. I'm a gatekeeper of this great game. Now, it's the National Football League we're talking about, and everybody within the sound of Sean Payton's voice or Gregg Williams' voice has a responsibility. Jonathan Vilma's more significant than, say, a rookie who was just drafted. But everybody is accountable and responsible that you play this game with great integrity. Now, quite honestly, I'm more passionate about the over 3 million kids that play youth football. Mm-hmm. I sit on the USA Football Board, and I am passionate about the game of football, not just the great game, but the life lessons learned from it. So, and I don't know where the union stands on this, but I'm hoping that they open their eyes to the integrity of all of this, that none of this is acceptable in football at any level. Having an incentive to, score touchdowns and get rewarded like that, that's in the contract. You don't need to put that in the locker room. And that's different than going and targeting somebody and trying to put somebody out. That's the kind of stuff that we need to make sure we're specific to that never happens again.
Do you not think the union should defend these players that are suspended?
I think I think they should defend them. However, they're also accountable. I don't want them walking in here and act like this did not happen. It happened, and you got to be accountable for that. Don't go in there and act like, well, my guy is not responsible for this. That's what I'm talking about, being responsible for things.
You don't think that, playing devil's advocate, that, the people in charge, the head coaches, whoever's sending the message down, like, this is how we do it. Now these guys are getting punished for following out orders. If you're in the Army and the general says do this and you do it,
And that was Tim's point, that he feels that if Gregg Williams is your defensive coordinator, your playing time is affected by him and your future salary is affected by him, then you may act a certain way.
You're going to play the game. You're going to play the game the way that he wants you to play the game, period. Okay? Really? I think you ever been cut? I've been cut. You've been cut. If you don't do what you're asked to do, they cut you. And so if you're trying to be on a football team, if you're trying to get that next contract, there's no doubt you're going to do what you're asked to do. Here's what I will say. Look at how current players, active players are responding to this. What are they doing? They're saying, no way, can't believe it. Jonathan Vilma, a year? Are you kidding me? That's crazy. That's how players are responding because they're in this. They know what that is like.
Clarify one thing, I've never been cut, so I don't know what that has to do with it. Here's the deal. If you are out there, and players have done this, if you're out there practicing with pads and you shouldn't be practicing, I will tell you this, he and other players will tell the union, hey, we're practicing with pads on, we shouldn't be doing this. Okay, if you can go to the union and tell them that, you're telling me they can't go, listen, our coaches are putting back, they got a bounty pool here going on. You know what we're doing? We're targeting guys. I love my career. I don't want to be suspended. Why aren't you thinking in that same mindset when you're trying to end somebody else's career by taking their knee out or attacking the head?
Merril,
you can go to the union for the same thing.
You know that there's totally different
as a
about
player
being
for
in
that.
OTAs in the middle of the summer and being in pads versus talking about an NFC championship game. You can't even put them in the same conversation.
No, we're talking about where is a player's responsibility and how can you not go to the union? If you're going to go cry to the union, we're practicing
so then every player that's coming to the defense of these guys that are suspended,
Jonathan Vilma,
you're calling them out?
Hate to see Jonathan Vilma go for a year. However, it is consistent. Right? It is consistent with what went on with the coaching staff. I am not shocked by that. And I think that the ramifications are significant. And the reason for that is so that the next time your kids come to play in the NFL, if they do, that, you know what, we never have this again. We'll have it from 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. It never exists again at any level.
It's not just about that, though. This is about, and listen, is that part of it? Is that part of it?
What else is this about?
Absolutely, it's part of it.
What else is this about?
It's about putting the challenge back in the NFLPA's hands about how they're going to handle this, about the predicament that they are in regards to player safety. Because you want to talk about 18 games, what's the NFLPA going to say?
No way.
It's not safe enough. Wait a second. If it's not safe enough, why did you defend Jonathan Vilma when he was participating in a bounty program? That's what it's about. It's putting it back in their hands, right in the NFLPA's lap. When else has Roger Goodell waited for a recommendation from the NFLPA on player punishment? Name me another time that's happened.
And who says he has to?
He doesn't have to, but he did in this case. Why is that? He was putting it back in the union's lap. It's as much about that as it is about true player safety.
There are certainly lawsuits out there that former players have against the league, and certainly the NFL wants to protect themselves from future litigation, and so they want to come down hard on things. But to Merril's point about integrity, if you see something like that, maybe that's the definition of integrity, is saying, you know what, this is wrong. I don't think we should do this anymore. Is there that much pressure in a locker room that you can't say, I don't know, man. We need to think about each other a little bit. I think at the end of the day that, if you go back in time, I'm sure back in the day when the 70s, 80s, that bounty stuff was probably part of football. And who knows how much is carried over to today's day and age. But as far as, they put such a harsh punishment down, they're trying to protect themselves. Like I think you said with the lawsuits. So they don't want to open themselves up to getting sued by this guy. Well, I got hurt in this game. There was a bounty on me. I'm suing them for all this money, and then where's it going to stop? So, but you have 2 young boys, and maybe they'll play football someday. I assume you'd want them in an environment around coaches, around where they're as safe as possible. Wouldn't that be fair? Yeah, absolutely. And so there must be. So Roger Goodell must have a bone in his body where he's looking to at least truly make this a safer game. But you feel that when he goes to the union.
Listen, my father played in the National Football League. My brother's a player. I'm a player. Listen, I was a player at some point. I have 2 sons as well. They may play in the game. Would I like it to be a safe game where people aren't intentionally trying to injure my boys if they ever end up playing? Of course I want that to be the case. But that's not all this is about. I mean, it's just not. Here's the thing. If you want to talk integrity, Jonathan Vilma got 16 games. Well, there was another 21 or so defensive players sitting in that room when Gregg Williams was putting that challenge out there before they played the San Francisco 49ers. Where were they? And I can tell you right now, that wasn't the first time a conversation like that was had in a defensive meeting room across the National Football League. So well,
it's not about one game. Don't sit there and say it's about the
NFC
Championship.
I'm saying it's
over years.
Absolutely, and different teams.
Who's the leader of that defense?
Gregg Williams was the leader.
Who's the leader, a player on that defense, walks out there? Teddy Bruce, he just did a beautiful dissertation on
that year. It was Jonathan Vilma,
and the year before that, Jonathan Vilma.
And what about Darren Sharpe?
And the year before that,
was there. And how about when Gregg was in Jacksonville, or when Gregg Williams was at the Washington Redskins, or when Gregg Williams was in the Buffalo Bills? You can go
now you're
back.
Talking about years that now you're outside the scope. It's back to 2 years ago.
It's not outside
Gregg
the
Williams
scope.
was there.
I was on the Washington Redskins when he was the defensive coordinator.
And there was a bounty going on there, and you knew about it.
There's no doubt that there was stuff going on there.
How do you know that?
Because I was there, I saw it.
So you saw it.
Ask guys that played for it. Go ask Matt Bowen, who was a free safety for the Washington Redskins.
This is about 3 years ago. That's where the scope is. You can sit there and talk about the Buffalo Bills and Washington Redskins. That's not it. It's about Jonathan Vilma and this 3 years. Why is he punished to this level? It is consistent. If you're going to be in a leadership role, if you're going to send a statement, it has got to be consistent. You can't be that harsh on coaches and then not do that on the player. Who was the quarterback of that defense?
How about the rest of the guys on the defense that were there?
Listen. We could get into all those individuals, but the guy who was the leader of that defense, who helped orchestrate it, was part of it and pulled the money too, Jonathan
How about each guy that got a payment from it? Was he not part of it?
Okay, that's another subject.
Roger Goodell admitted
to talk about.
He admitted there were players who took money and put some money up, but in the end, he went to the people, like you said, who were most responsible. Now, that's certainly a subjective thing to do, but that was his point. And why he didn't suspend 15, 20 guys, I don't know, and maybe eventually he'll explain himself more clearly. But what would have been the proper punishment in this situation?
Well, listen, I'm not saying that this stuff should exist. I'm not saying that you just turn a complete blind eye to this. I just think that to act like this is solely in the name of player safety is very naive. I mean, let's be honest. It's not just about eliminating bounties from the National Football League. It's also about the other elements as it relates to player safety and the debate over whether you can go to an 18-game regular season and the concussion lawsuits and the various lawsuits that so many players and former players are joining. It's all part of that, and it's also about the challenge to the NFLPA. I mean this. Name me another time when Roger Goodell said, well, before I suspend this player, hey, DeMaurice Smith, do you have a recommendation for me on this where I can think about how I'm going to suspend him?
Well, they just went through a giant negotiation for a new CBA, and ideas are
No. He decides what the discipline is, and then the union fights it. This is when he put back in their lap saying, oh, you want to be involved in the process? Here you go. Have a crack at it. Have a crack at this process right here.
And let me ask you this. What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with what?
What's wrong with him doing that? Trying to engage in it?
Because he's playing.
Because they realize both sides of these.
He's playing the politics of the issue.
You're wandering down other areas that don't matter right now. This is about a guy being suspended for 16 games.
How does it not matter? He's dictating.
That is what
it's a challenge. He's making rules, but in the way he's making these rules and making these judgments, really what he's doing is just challenging the NFLPA. That's what he's doing.
I don't see it like that. I mean, you're talking about, concussions, losses. That's not what this is about. Jonathan Vilma, a starting linebacker in the National Football League, has just been suspended an entire year from his part in the bounty program with the Saints over the last 3 years. I think it is accurate and is consistent with the message they've tried to set. That's what this is about. I'm going to stay within that scope.
Listen, I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you that it was consistent based on the severity of the punishment.
And we're done.
The question is how he got to that point and whether or not it was the right decision, especially what the motivation for that punishment are.
What's the reaction you think going to be in the locker room? We've seen some tweets on players. We're putting them here on the bottom part of our screen. Overall, what do you think is going to be the next time you guys get together?
It's scary, because, in the bad, all the heat of the moment, things are always said. And now you're thinking to yourself, whoa, I don't want that misconstrued the wrong way. I don't want him suspended 16 games. To me, it would have been nicer if maybe they said, listen, we want to bring awareness situation. This was a part of football. This was when in the earlier years this used to go on.
They were warned.
It was the dark side.
They were warned multiple times.
They were warned. I didn't hear any warnings. I mean,
so you never heard.
I heard you heard talks about it, which was about it. But if they would have said maybe, okay, we knew this was going on, we knew this happened. Now let's bring awareness and let's set the ground rules. There's going to be none of this. If this happens, guess what's going to happen? You're going to get 16 games, no questions asked.
As a player, though, wouldn't you want the union to maybe send out an email 2 years ago? Guys, for our own good, why don't we stop this whole bounty thing? It's bad legally, it's bad image-wise, and we really could end up hurting somebody. Maybe a friend.
I'm on board with that decision. And this
but nothing like that was ever said publicly, too, as a union.
I mean, you guys have been talking about it on ESPN, I'm sure. And
I'm talking like 2 years ago.
And it should have been
3 years ago.
And if that was the case, that if everybody knew about it, then maybe we should have brought
that would be assuming that the NFLPA was aware that the league was investigating the New Orleans Saints.
But they must have been aware it was going on. Or you think maybe the heads of the union wouldn't be aware that that stuff goes on a lot when you guys don't share everything with your union heads?
I don't know. And back to your point about you saying the union should, whatever punishment is handed down, then like in most unions, defend their employee of the punishment. Like, no, we think that's too harsh. And then we go into negotiations. Like, okay, let's give them 8 games, or let's take the situation and bring awareness to this whole thing and put it to bed. And, let's not have a bad taste around the bounty thing in the NFL.
And again, the coaches' penalties weren't reduced, but again, it's different when players in a union get involved. Could you see a chance, maybe Roger Goodell, with the pressure from the union and whatever words they use in closed doors and any threats they might throw at them may, in fact, reduce these penalties?
I think it just all depends on the process. As you heard Adam Schefter earlier talking about what the process would be, and because whether it's on the field stuff, off the field stuff, and where that all fits in terms of basically the jurisdiction of the National Football League. If you're appealing to Roger Goodell, or if you're appealing to basically a third party in this process, that's very different. I think if you're appealing it to Roger Goodell, I don't think anything changes.
It's good about too about evidence. This isn't an isolated game. It's 3 years.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff there that we're probably not even privy to that are going to be displayed, shown. Jonathan Vilma. How sincere? Has he had a chance to speak on his behalf? Those kind of things. I think
they did have a chance, but no one chose to go and speak in person with Roger Goodell. But now certainly.
I didn't know that Jonathan Vilma had a shot.
But I'd like to see all the facts and all the evidence. Once everything, the storm clears, I want to see what was laid out. This is what we did. This is the evidence we had.
I think this is what happened. I guess my reaction to that is if we're really not in the wrong here. I'll be in that office right now with Roger saying, here's my deal. Okay.
And it did involve,
I didn't know.
It did involve NFL security and certainly lots of interviews and according to the NFL, lots of evidence. Whether or not they'll spell that out for us in these next coming days, we shall see.
All-Pro defensive tackle Warren Sapp. He's an NFL Network analyst. Warren, good morning.
Good morning, Charlie.
Is there anything that surprises you about this story?
First of all, that they were doing it, asked to stop, and they continued to do so. Because the first thing that comes to my mind is we play a game, a kid's game, and we all could get it. We all could get injured out there playing on a football field. Why would you send out that type of vibe from your defense, your special teams, knowing that it can come back at any moment, and if somebody finds out about it, it's going to be harsh penalties. So that's the biggest thing for me.
Okay, beyond the cash payment, that kind of bounty, is it generally the intent of defensive linemen, for example, to take out the other team's quarterback, especially if he's having, a very effective game?
No, that's never the intent of a football player to go out and. Our whole intent for an opposing quarterback is to disrupt his timing, make him have a bad day. If he's having a great day, there's something we're not doing right that he's having this kind of day. And there's no reason to go out there and go after this man. He's a father, a husband. There's so many other things that go into this other than a football game.
Tony Dungy, who you know used to be Peyton Manning's coach, says he believes that Manning's had a bounty on him and that it led to his neck injuries. That's what Tony says.
You know what, Tony's been one of the best coaches I've ever been around, one of the first guys that ever taught me the values of defense and, you know, your teammates and everything. And if he says he thinks so, then I'll go along with him. But for so long in this game, I always thought we took care of each other.
JB, it's interesting. There's some mixed reaction. We have Brett Favre coming out saying, hey, it's football. I don't really think it's a big deal. Why is this coming out now, JB?
Well, you know what? It's interesting because league officials did blow the whistle on one of their own. And to the degree, look, Warren probably, and I always defer to Warren, he's played the game, he's been in the fraternity, but he knows as well as I do, Erica, that players, if you will, it's almost like an office pool. They will put money, the players, into a pool to incent a player to make a big play, but not to injure. As Warren has said before, the guys will play within the confines of the rules. Hit hard, painful, but not to injure, to maim, or to end somebody's career.
The reason this seems incredible to me is that if one team does it to another, that team is going to simply reciprocate. And so it's not in your interest to do it.
Go ahead, Warren.
That's my whole thing. Why would you send out this vibe? Because we don't keep many secrets in the NFL. I mean, if you're knocking a dude out and you getting paid, that's going to get around. And once it gets out, the league's going to come down on you, and even more than that, teams going to start coming after your guys.
So, Warren, what do you think?
Hey, Erica, and let me just say this as well, too, and Warren knows this all too well. Today's football is different than back in the day, in the Jack Tatum, Lambert days, if you will, where guys were with teams throughout their career. So they genuinely almost hated the opposition. But in today's football, where there's so much player movement, these guys fraternize together. They go out. Many of them are represented by the same agents. They're not looking to hurt somebody to end their career, but they are looking to play hard, and that they do.
So Warren, what do you think should happen here? Is this going to end anybody's career?
Oh, this will be some stiff penalties, hard penalties, and if anybody in their wildest dreams ever even think about it again, they'll probably be banned from the league.
That's the question. What will the punishment be?
Well, it's going to be tough. It's going to be rough.
Make no mistake about it, the commissioner, Roger Goodell, is resolute in his aim to make sure that the game is less violent. Player safety is of paramount importance, as we said before, and he will not stop. He realizes it's going to be a culture change. It's going to take a while, but he's dead set on making certain that happens.
James Brown, Warren Sapp, good to have you both with us. Thank you.
Thanks for being with us.
Oh, you're welcome.
So tell me, how deep did this investigation by the NFL go? How widespread were these bounty programs?
Well, it was a 2-year investigation on and off, mostly off, quite frankly, because when the NFL investigated this after the 2009 football season, they sent investigators to New Orleans and interviewed several people, coaches and at least one player with the New Orleans Saints. And they denied the existence of a bounty program. But then more credible evidence came to the surface within the last 3 months. The NFL reinvestigated. And I think one of the important things in here is that they examined a lot of forensic evidence, and I'm guessing that means emails, and found a lot of evidence in the emails that a bounty program existed. But I think the one important thing to realize here is that there actually are sort of two forms of a bounty. The one that's getting all the headlines and that I don't think is nearly as widespread as the other one is the one where players will be offered cash to deliberately injure and knock out a player on the opponent that week. I think it's the other kind of bounty that is significantly more prevalent, and that is, $100 for an interception here, $50 for a forced fumble or something like that. So I don't believe that every team in the league is offering players $1,500 to knock out the opposing quarterback every Sunday in the league. I think it's rare, in fact.
So why did this cross a particular boundary? Why is there so much of an outrage over this?
I think it's because over the last 18 months, the NFL in the middle of the 2010 season, had a horrible weekend where there were 3 or 4 very violent hits and collisions. And the NFL at that point decided to really ratchet up the fines and the possible suspensions of players for what they considered over-the-top hits. The NFL has been confronted with more than 50 players in the last few years who were suing the National Football League because they feel that the league knew a lot about head trauma and concussions and did absolutely nothing about it. So I think one of the things that the league thought when they started hearing this, and why it upset the commissioner, Roger Goodell, so much, is he's saying, hey, on the one hand, we're trying to prevent these really serious hits and to try to make the game, if possible, a little bit safer. And now you got a rogue outfit, at least some people on the defense of the New Orleans Saints who are encouraging players by incentivizing them to go out and injure the opposing quarterback or somebody on the opponent. So I think, those two things are at such cross purposes that it's going to force Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the league, to hand down some very severe sanctions.
So how does the NFL change the culture of the sport? I mean, on high school football on Friday nights and college football on Saturdays, you see the stickers on the sides of the helmets for when kids make big plays. And it seems like this is an extension of that incentive structure.
Big plays are one thing, and tremendously hard hits in making a tackle, that's another thing. But if there is this subculture involving some teams in the NFL where they look on film on Friday and they say, okay, there's the quarterback. In this case, here's Brett Favre. If you knock him out of the game, we're going to win. So I'm going to pay you $10,000 as an extra motivation to go knock Brett Favre out of the game. And I think that is where the NFL feels that we just can't have that. We can't have this extra motivation to try to deliberately injure star players, when on the other hand, they're fining people severely right now to try to prevent some of these colossal hits, and illegal hits that they're seeing.
So what kind of repercussions are we likely to see here? How seriously is the NFL likely to take this?
I think the NFL is going to take it very seriously. I believe that the assistant coach that was most involved, who's already admitted that he was knee-deep in this bounty program, Gregg Williams, who's now with the St. Louis Rams, I believe he'll be suspended for at least half of the upcoming season and won't be able to coach. And then I believe that the people who, at the very least, Sean Payton, the head coach of the Saints, Mickey Loomis, the general manager of the Saints, the NFL believes at the very least that they lost institutional control over what was going on the defensive side of the ball. I believe both of those men will get suspended as well. And I think some players, like the aforementioned Jonathan Vilma, a prominent linebacker on the team, who, according to the National Football League, offered his teammates $10,000 to take out Brett Favre in the championship game 3 years ago.
All right, Peter King from Sports Illustrated. Thanks so much for your time.
You're welcome.
GM Mickey Loomis are scheduled today to have their appeals hearing in front of NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell for their part in the team's bounty program. As for Gregg Williams, the former Saints defensive coordinator, he is not appealing his indefinite suspension. And this morning, documentary filmmaker Sean Felon, who directed the ESPN 30 for 30 film on Ricky Williams, has released an audio recording that he says is a speech Williams gave to Saints defensive players the night before the team lost to the 49ers in their playoff game in January. Felon was following the Saints last season while working on a documentary featuring former Saints special team player Steve Gleason, who is currently battling ALS. Felon released the audio on his website and says there's no doubt the suspended Williams put a bounty on Alex Smith during the meeting. Now, during the 12-minute speech, Williams made references to hurting the quarterback Smith, wide receivers Michael Crabtree and Kyle Williams, and tight end Vernon Davis. He also used his signature phrase, quote, "kill the head and the body will die," aimed at running back Frank Gore. Some of the excerpts from that audio speech right here on SportsCenter.
Kill the head and the body will die. Kill the head and the body will die. We've got everything in the world to make sure we kill Frank Gore's head. We want want him running sideways. We want his head sideways. Little 32, one knock at him. He has no idea what he's in for. When he's on the sideline, we got to turn that over, turn the coaches over, turn the spectators over, go get that on the sideline. It's a great game. It's a production business. We hit Smith right there. Remember me. I got the first one. So we'll lay that. We're going to dominate the line of scrimmage, and we're going to kill the head. Every single one of you, before you get off the 5, affect the head. Early, affect the head. Continue, touch and hit the head. They're going to come in. They're going to be shocked with our contact. They're going to be shocked with our speed. They're going to be shocked with our strip.
Also in the speech, Gregg Williams came up with a plan to go after 49ers return man Kyle Williams. Now, Kyle Williams has a history of concussions, and the Saints defensive coordinator wanted to test how healthy he could be if hit hard in the game. As I mentioned before, other players in this speech: wide receiver Michael Crabtree, tight end Vernon Davis, and quarterback Alex Smith.
Respect comes from fear. This is how you get respect in this league. We need to find out in the first 2 series of the game, the little wide receiver number 10, about his concussion. Put a lick on him right now. He needs to decide. We need to decide whether Crabtree wants to be a fake prima donna or he wants to be a tough guy. We need to find that out. He becomes human. Get out that outside ACL. We need to decide on how many times we can beat Frank Gore's head. We need to decide how many times we can bull rush and we can put Vernon Davis's ankles over the piles. We need to decide, and when they are fearing us, they give us the ball.
Felon also told Yahoo Sports at one point, Williams says, quote, "We hit Alex Smith right there." Then he points under his chin and adds, "Remember me. Go get it. Go lay that out."
As we bring it.
Phil Anselmo, the outspoken former frontman for Pantera and current frontman for Down, is a huge fan of the NFL's New Orleans Saints. So needless to say, he is none too happy about the year-long and partial season suspensions handed out to his hometown boyhood team in what is being characterized as BountyGate. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell handed down the suspensions to head coach Sean Payton, defensive coordinator Gregg Williams, and linebacker Jonathan Vilma on so-called evidence he has, saying they put bounties on players with payments correlating to injuries inflicted on their opponents. Goodell has come under fire for his heavy-handed punishments, and even NFL insiders think that the penalty against the New Orleans Saints is harsh, especially considering that the NFL commissioner has not made public all of his evidence against the team. Phil Anselmo was pissed, and he had some pretty harsh words for how his team has been dealt with.
I got it on better word than anyone, and I don't give a if you read this in print, I'll sound just like anybody else, but I know players on the team. And this is a personal vendetta against Sean Payton between him and Roger Goodell. And Goodell, I'm going to tell you what, America stare hard at this motherfucker. He is the cop that will pull you over and take you to jail just because he can. He is the dude who peeps through your daughter's window when she's in 3rd grade. He's a piece of politician.
One of those suspended, linebacker Jonathan Vilma, is suing Goodell personally for loss of income and defamation, and Anselmo pointed out that was perpetuated by Sports Illustrated. Anselmo defended Vilma and wanted to see proof while ranting against the irresponsibility of the league, the magazine, and writer Peter King.
Thank goodness. Good. Let's see the real evidence, because it is so much hearsay. And if they have a real judge, and I know Roger Goodell is a lawyer and all this shit.
Dictatorship is what the it is.
Well, the owners voted that way, and they gave him this dictatorship. And that, I tell you what, that goes out the window with the Vilma suit. It's a personal suit because the media, via the NFL, made Vilma the poster boy of this bounty thing. Sports Illustrated has Jonathan Vilma on the cover, and it says bounty culture, this asshole Peter King. You motherfucker. Keep writing. You're a hack.
So far, Vilma is appealing the sentence, and although a general list has come out, there has been nothing released that directly implicates Jonathan Vilma. Despite feeling that the NFL sabotaged the Super Bowl contending team, he feels the offense will be the same or better, and also feels the defense will be improved. Phil says that Goodell and the NFL shouldn't come looking for hospitality at this year's Super Bowl, which would be held in New Orleans at the Superdome.
DeMaurice Smith, Executive Director of the NFL Players Association, joins us this morning, and welcome.
Good morning. Welcome to Washington.
Thank you very much. Are you satisfied with what former Commissioner Tagliabue said?
Well, certainly satisfied in the ruling that he did not believe that there was any evidence supporting the suspensions of the players. Frankly, I'm still disappointed in the National Football League and certainly disappointed in the way in which they conducted an investigation, because I now know, having read and seen all of the testimony, that there was certainly no evidence that the bounties existed. And frankly, I was a prosecutor in this city for 10 years. I understand how to do investigations, and the investigation that the league did was sloppy. The investigation that they did was more outcome focused than, frankly, process focused.
But Tagliabue also said that the system was at fault.
Well, I think what Paul indicated in the transcript, having seen all of the evidence, was that there was no basis to punish the players. And I think that. And I think that as soon as the transcript is released and everybody can read the testimony under oath, I think it's important for all Americans to see what Gregg Williams said when he said that there was no bounty.
But doesn't this, by Tagliabue, doesn't this undermine Roger Goodell's authority?
Well, at times when you make a wrong decision, perhaps your authority should be undermined.
But are you saying that in your judgment, there was no bounty at all on the part of the New Orleans Saints? None at all.
Having seen nearly 50,000 pages of evidence and nearly 20 hours of testimony, I know that there was no bounty put on players by Saints players.
There was no payment for taking somebody out of the game?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So what should the commissioner and the NFL do now?
Well, first and foremost, they should say they're sorry because they've maligned the character of good players. And if they certainly believe that they are right, the one thing that Roger Goodell could do is simply release the transcripts, and we will all know the truth.
Should they apologize to the coach of the Saints who's not being able to participate in this season?
Should the league?
Yes.
Well, I think that the league has an obligation to search for the truth.
Okay.
And I believe that the truth is that there were no bounties put on other players by Saints players.
So what does the league do other than apologizing? I mean, they have said that Tagliabue said, let's lift the suspension on these players. But he did not say that with respect to the coach.
Well, there's a difference between where the players were and where the coaches are.
What's the difference?
The difference is the players have a union. And at a time when unions are under attack, this is what unions do. So we fight. And we believe that there are times when our players are wrongly treated that we will fight for their fairness. And we will fight for fundamental fairness. Today, we're going to be filing another lawsuit against the National Football League and against some member teams because those teams are making our players sign waivers of liability before they get medical treatment and before they get some shots. And I believe that a medical professional making a player sign a waiver before you provide that player with medical treatment is not only something that is wrong ethically, but at a time when the league professes to care about player health and safety. Do you think that's consistent with player health and safety?
Very interesting.
Thank you.
DeMaurice Smith, thank
you.
you for being here.
Brian, is it even remotely possible that Sean Payton didn't have a clue what his defensive coordinator had put in place to incent his players?
Well, and here's where the difficulty becomes, and I'm going to be very interested in seeing exactly how the league articulates this, because it really comes down to semantics. Bounties, for lack of a better word, and that now is going to encompass so many things. Encompasses everything from DBs having bounties on who gets the first interception, defensive linemen, who gets the first knockdown on the quarterback, who gets the most knockdowns on the quarterback, special teamers, that who blows someone up inside of the 20. Those competitive things, that the kangaroo court type of things that players in all sports have had for years and years and years, as to where that now crosses the line where the players, or God forbid even the coaches, have been more specific about, no, we're going to take this guy out in this way, in terms of taking out the knee or the shoulder, the longest yard mentality of, okay, here's the x-rays on so-and-so from 3 years ago and he had a broken femur. I'm obviously taking this to a ridiculous level, but close to that. That's where the commissioner is going to have to make, if he does indeed sanction at the level we're talking about, going to have to be crystal clear about the culpability. The most culpable being, they knew they were being investigated. They were asked questions about in 2009 and 10. They supposedly lied about it and then continued on in 2011.
That's arrogance
after
there.
They knew they were already being investigated.
I know you weren't surprised when you heard this news, Brian. We've all heard about Buddy Ryan's bounty system, but were you surprised at how brazen, arrogant, how open that Gregg Williams was here? How did he expect to get away with this?
Well, I think you can see by the statement that Gregg leveled that there was no backtracking from it, that he took responsibility for it. There again, and this is where it gets into that gray area where the bravado you try to create as a coach, that fine line between that and now enabling your players to take this to a level. I mean, you've heard it all the time. You've talked to players. You can see it after games. The genuine care, the respect the players want to have for each other. Look, no one's going to try to hurt somebody, but you get into the heat of the battle or the testosterone-driven locker room of, okay, yeah, we're going to do this, and I'm going to knock this guy out. And, it's like the old murder mysteries where you said you were going to kill her. Well, I didn't mean it. It was, it was just a phrase type of deal. I'm going to kill you. Well, same thing. Well, I'm going to take him out. I'm going to send him to the hospital. Well, was that your real intent? Was that what you were specifically trying to do? And did you act on it within the game in a way, particularly now given the identification of the rules? This is going to have to be very well documented by the league.
And do you what are you expecting for punishments, Brian? Do you have any sense? Williams get a year?
I'm strictly guessing, but as we said, does it not have to be well north of what the Spygate sanctions were?
Absolutely.
In terms of draft choices, in terms of obviously the monetary, and then does this include some suspensions for a period of time for all the individuals involved?
Sports Radio WEEI, now on 93.7 FM in Boston.
A little bit of background, just knowing him over the last, since 2009. It's kind of worked out the right way. His name had been brought up to me quite a few times when I was in Miami. I know after VJ left for Denver, his name was brought up quite a bit. I think I have a unique relationship to where we've known each other for a long time. We've competed against each other quite a few times, and I try to bring that up as much as possible. Not the games that he beat us in, the ones that we lost. But just being familiar with his system, how he does things, how he operates, and a lot of the guys that he's been with over time, I think there's a lot of lines of connection there.
And also just to follow on that, it became a headline when you hired Joe Vitt and Gregg. Obviously, they had that background, the whole bounty thing and so forth. What gives you the confidence, the comfort level that you think that's behind it?
Well, Joe's the one that's recommended Gregg to me multiple times, and those two guys are close, and just watching those two guys get to work together again, I think they're both excited about that. I know Joe is. I think some of his best years were with Gregg, and vice versa. So I think both those guys are excited to get back together. they speak a common language, and they're both trying to do the same thing. That's win.
Adam, do you feel like
Goodell live here on NFL Network? Commissioner, thanks so much for the time. You just heard what Drew Brees said. Why did you hand down the punishment that you handed down on the Saints?
Well, Rich, it's very clear. We have a serious violation of an existing rule that threatens the health and welfare of our players. In addition, this went on for three years, and it was investigated. We were misled, and there were denials throughout that period. And meanwhile, there continued to be risks to our players and to the integrity of our game. So it calls for very significant and clear messages.
So do you feel you were lied to, Commissioner?
Clearly, we were lied to. We investigated this back in 2010. We were told that it was not happening. It continued for another 2 years until we got credible evidence late in the 2011 season. And we were able to obviously identify significant information that verifies from multiple sources that this was going on for a 3-year period.
So to those who feel you have brought the hammer down too hard, what would you say?
I don't think you can be too hard on people that put at risk our players' health and safety. That is a critical issue for us going forward, and it has been in our past. And we will always protect that. We will always make the decisions that are best for the game long term and our players.
Well, reading the finding of facts, there was an email that was mentioned in which Sean Payton received from a close associate offering up some money for a bounty on Aaron Rodgers. The fact that there was somebody from outside the Saints organization involved, what did that set off in the league office? How much did that play a role in these penalties today?
I don't think it was as big a factor, Rich, other than the fact that it was clear that this was widely known and that if you weren't aware of it as head coach, you should have been aware of it. And that's a critical factor for me. As head coach, who clearly it specifically states in your contract that you supervise the coaches and the players, this is something as a head coach you need to be held accountable for and responsible for, because all of us are responsible for maintaining the integrity of the league and also making sure we're doing everything possible to ensure the safety of our players.
And in just one specific thing, of the quarterbacks that were mentioned that the league found that had bounties on them, absent is the name Peyton Manning, who the Saints played in the Super Bowl. To the best of your knowledge by the investigation and the investigators, was there no evidence uncovered that Peyton Manning was a subject of a bounty in the league's biggest game?
Well, Rich, we put together all of our information and released all of our information, both on March 2nd and again today. Any information that we can credibly present, we have done so. So we have been as transparent as possible here. It is clear that this policy was violated and is an important one. And we took actions as quickly as we could, but wanted to be thorough and fair. And we think that while it is a strong message, it's an important one to send, that we are going to protect our players.
Did you speak to Coach Payton today?
I did not speak to Coach Payton today. I've had 2 meetings with him in the last 2.5 weeks.
Okay. And lastly, what about the players who were involved? Obviously, that has been, for the moment, nothing's been handed down in terms of punishment on them. What can you tell us about that part of the ongoing investigation?
Well, as I stated in the documents, I've had several conversations with the leadership of the NFLPA, DeMaurice in particular, and other players who have contacted me, including those that are in a leadership position. Probably spoken to over 24 players in the last couple of weeks. And we want to continue to have that dialogue. We want to understand what was going on. My focus here initially was on the team and management, coaches. But certainly, I'm disappointed the players would identify opposing players and and intentionally try to injure them. And that's something that we're going to continue to pursue, and that's next up.
No, lastly, the word disappointed has shown up quite a bit. You just said it. It's in the press release. What is the one emotion that would describe what you're feeling right now as commissioner of the NFL?
Well, unfortunately, Rich, I've been dealing with this for the last few months, and as you find out what's been going on, you're disappointed, you're angered. There are a lot of great people who coach, play, and are involved with this game, and they care deeply about this game. And the game doesn't need to be played this way. And that's made clear by players, by coaches that I've spoken to. We need to change the culture. This is another step in changing that culture. This type of behavior and accepting this type of a program is not going to be tolerated.
Commissioner, we appreciate the time. We'll chat with you from the annual meeting.
Okay, Rich.
Alan Donis joins us. He's a writer, filmmaker, comic, radio personality, and author of Patron Saints, How the Saints Gave New Orleans a Reason to Believe. Alan, welcome to the program.
Great to be on.
Appreciate your being on the program. What a situation the Saints have gotten themselves into. I think this is unprecedented. Your head coach is suspended, the GM suspended, the assistant head coach, and all because of, well, you know what happened behind the scenes.
Well, everybody thinks they know what happened. I travel with the team, as do most of the media members. And in reality, what happened? There are these checks, these envelopes that they give out, a couple $100. It was a rallying thing that was there, but it was more of a motivational thing. Now there's a tape of Gregg Williams, part of a documentary where they recorded him, and somebody leaked it to the press, probably somebody at the NFL. And you listen to it, he's saying, take out the head and the body will fall and all that. If you listen to it long enough, first off, you realize there's no bounties. He doesn't say, and by the way, if you take out Frank Gore, there's $5,000 for you.
Right.
Nowhere in the speech is the guy who was supposedly running, the scandal, talking about any of the money. And the other thing, it was an edited version. If you listen to the whole thing, he actually says at the end, don't hurt the team, don't go over the line. That just didn't make it to the publicly released file.
Well, what's interesting about this, too, is I remember listening to some of the clips and thinking there was no mention of money here. And I've also talked to a couple of other NFL players who said, you know what, I've heard this my whole career. I have some friends in high school who said the same thing. I mean, our coach told us worse than that when we were in high school ball.
Hey, you saw I managed Larry Holmes. That would have been nice if Larry just said that. It's a rough and tumble sport. My belief and a lot of people's is that they have this concussion lawsuit by 700-plus former NFL players saying you didn't do enough to protect us.
Yeah.
I think the NFL overreacted to something that really wasn't there, and they've gone on. And the tip to the NFL came from a disgruntled former employee. So the credibility, why didn't he blow the whistle while he was an employee? If he was so self-righteous that he did it, and from a source in the situation, some of the materials, printed materials that the whistleblower turned in were suspect and may not have actually been real. And I think Roger Goodell overreacted. I know he can't get out of it. And look, the Saints aren't virgins there, but they are not the evil guys they're being made out to be.
Do you have any idea who the employee is?
Yeah, I do. Do I get shot through the phone if I say it? Based on my sources, and I believe they're very good, the former defensive quality control coach, his name is Mike Cerullo with a C, was let go after the Super Bowl season. And for whatever reasons, he was unable to find work in the NFL. And he believed that it was Gregg Williams and Sean Payton and others in the Saints organization blocking him from getting other work. And to the best of the sources I have and everybody else has, and we all had that name, the Saints, we believe, have been told not to confirm anything, and they probably wouldn't. But it's Mike Cerullo, and he's an assistant coach at the University of Connecticut, based on my information.
Now, has anybody gotten in touch with Mike Cerullo to ask him about that?
Actually, this is the first time his name's put out there anywhere because nobody wanted to do it. And I asked your producer, I said, hey, I just feel like getting this off my chest. This is the guy. I've emailed the chancellor at the University of Connecticut and asked her how at the college level, where players are much more easily influenced, how can you have a man that participated in this program? He was there for that season. This supposedly all went on that season. He was in every meeting that season. And he told no one, while it's not about, fondling little boys, it's similar to what happened at Penn State. Oh, you saw it, and you waited, and you didn't do anything. And then when you lost your job, you felt compelled to go to the NFL and cry.
I kept hearing names like Jeremy Shockey. I think Warren Sapp said that.
It was not Jeremy Shockey. Yeah. That was That was completely erroneous. There were a lot of rumors going on about who did it. Even in New Orleans, they were naming, lower level guys. But, I'd be willing to bet what's in my checking account, which isn't always very much, that the initial snitch is Mike Cerullo.
Okay.
I hate to use the term snitch, but that's the best word I can think of.
What are the Saints going to do under the circumstances?
There's a debate about bringing, a new head coach or something. I think that's reasonably far-fetched. They were hoping to some extent that maybe the appeals process would do something. But, look, the people running this team, for the most part, are the same guys that ran the team after Katrina.
Right.
I think they're in good hands. I think it's very, they're going to tell Sean Payton and Mickey Loomis and those guys, hey, you can't talk to, staff members. There's going to be communication from somebody's wife or something more than likely. I think the Saints will be competitive. They missed Sean Payton when he wasn't on the field last year. It wasn't quite right with offensive coordinator Pete Carmichael running the offense. The real problem is going to be they have to get Drew Brees signed and bring him in, which I think will happen before training camp. And then the issue is Sean and Drew have always shared like one brain, all these plays they drew up and the offenses they were throwing in. Well, Sean's not there. So he'll have to try and do that with Pete Carmichael, who just isn't Sean Payton.
See, I was thinking when all this came down, I was thinking this is an opportunity for Drew Brees to just step up and say, look, I'm the quarterback. I'm the de facto head coach now, and this is how it's going to be.
I think he will because Drew's that kind of leader.
Yeah.
But the reality is he's Drew Brees and he's the quarterback. He's not Sean Payton, and he's got half of his information. But I think they're so solid on offense. Their free agency, a couple of wide receivers left. They replaced the guards and that kind of stuff.
Right.
I think the Saints will be right back in contention this year.
Alan, do you think, given all this information that's come out, this BountyGate thing, do you think this is something that goes on with other teams and they just
Absolutely.
have it? Yeah.
Players are saying that.
Yeah.
The guy who got hurt, because in all of this magical bounty system, we're going to go and hurt guys. Nobody got hurt. Yes, they hit Brett Favre a lot, but Brett Favre gets hit a lot. Quarterbacks get hit. You shift your offense to make sure your quarterback doesn't get hit. It's how the game is played. Kurt Warner was carted off the field, and he never played again. Kurt Warner said, I didn't think they were coming after me any more than anybody else, and the only reason I got hit was I was downfield. In all that time, there were no penalties called on the Saints for knocking anybody out of the games, and they didn't knock anybody out of the game, which begs the question, then where is this pot of gold?
Yeah.
It never existed. Mike Ornstein is a sports agent who supposedly put in $15,000 into this kitty. If you know Mike wouldn't give you 15 cents. You can't get Mike to buy you a Coca-Cola at the stand.
Really?
Yeah, he's a great guy, and he's lots of fun, and he's really interesting.
He's too cheap to put up bounties.
When I read that was the first thing when I read it. I said, well, this makes no sense.
Yeah.
I know Mike. Mike didn't put $15,000 in to get somebody hit.
All right. All right. Now, somebody, I hope you'll have the opportunity to get the accused on the phone and talk to him and find out if this is actually true or not.
I'm curious to see what he has to say myself.
Alan Donis, writer, filmmaker, comic, radio personality, author of the book Patron Saints: How the Saints Gave New Orleans a Reason to Believe. Alan, we'll have you back. Thank you so much.
Anytime. Thanks, guys.
A study is
from Drew Brees. I am speechless. Sean Payton is a great man, coach, and mentor, the best there is. I need to hear an explanation for this punishment. Do you agree with the Brees tweet?
No, I do not. First of all, nobody has more respect for Drew Brees than me. I think he's a sensational quarterback. He's a winner. And I can't say enough about his contributions, his philanthropy, in terms of his commitment to the New Orleans community and that whole Mississippi Gulf Coast, the whole bit. Sure. He's a phenomenal individual. But he's off base here. You don't need an explanation. I understand you to start quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. You need to shut your mouth and be ready to play for somebody else. Your coach was egregious, to be kind. He condoned a bounty system. He lied about it to the NFL's face. I'm sorry, and that's far be it for me to bring this up, but he lied to their face just like Michael Vick lied to their face. And, even though it's for completely different, different situations, because Mike Vick was involved with the dogfighting scandal, one of the biggest things that stung Roger Goodell is he said, don't play games. Yeah. And he looked Michael Vick in the face, and he asked him a question, and Michael Vick lied right to his face. Yeah.
Worse than the crime is the
Sean Payton did the same thing. Sean Payton did the same thing. Let's not give him a pass. Phenomenal coach. I know this. But you can't have these kind of actions, this kind of behavior going on. It cannot be condoned in any way, shape, form, or fashion. I not only agree with the commissioner, I applaud his position. My only problem I have with it is that I think Loomis should be suspended for the whole year. You were the GM, it was on your watch. You had a responsibility to look out for your owner and the entire organization. The coach is the coach, but the general manager is responsible for the organization. You understand? You oversaw all of this, and you let it happen. You knew about it. You let it happen. He talk about he didn't do enough. You know what I think about, Skip, when I hear people say they didn't do enough? You did nothing. It's not that you didn't do enough. It's that you did nothing. You turned a blind eye and a deaf ear. To me, Mickey Loomis being suspended for 8 games is not enough. He should be gone for the year. Sean Payton should be gone for the year. Respect for Gregg Williams because he's been in the business for 23 years in the NFL. I love the fact that he was suspended indefinitely because that's Roger Goodell saying, we'll think about what we're going to. Now, Sean Payton, you just out for the year. You done. Okay? But Gregg Williams, no. You're out for the year at least. Right. And now we will think about whether or not we want you back in the NBA. And I hear his contrite statements. I read his contrite statements and all of that stuff. I don't buy your contrition because you lied to, you denied it to, and you kept it on going. The NFL was investigating this for 3 years. They let you know about it 3 years ago, and you still kept doing it. Yeah. I mean, there is no excuse for this. And these players that call up and say, well, you know what, I got to defend him. He's a good man, and he's this and that. Shut up. These athletes sometimes drive me nuts. Learn when to shut up. There are certain things you cannot defend. And not only that, it shreds your credibility. Because when you don't know how to shut up and you try to defend the indefensible, when the moment comes that there's something viable to defend, nobody wants to hear you because you're blowing smoke into the wind. Because when you had an opportunity to shut up and you should have shut up, you started talking. And that's the problem with these guys. All these guys deserve what they got.
Strong. I completely and utterly agree with you and applaud everything you just said. I am a big fan of Drew Brees. We've had him on the show. Yeah. We all like him a lot. There's much to be liked about him.
Good man.
Very disappointed in that tweet that we just showed. And so, by way of explanation, back to Drew, I'll do it in tweet form. Head coach repeatedly lied about system geared to seriously injuring rival players. Period. Send.
That's it.
Okay? That's it.
That's
all you need to know.
Characters.
Bingo. And I applaud the commissioner. It did remind me last night of a movie I recently watched, which is my all-time favorite sports movie, 8 Men Out, about the Black Sox scandal. Right. And in the end, Kennesaw Mountain Landis takes over the sport of baseball. That's right. He drops the hammer because he says this will never happen again. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to put a stop to it. You guys are all gone. You're gone. Even Buck Weaver, played by John Cusack, who was sort of the star role in the movie. Right. All he knew was he knew it was happening. He was in on it at the start, but when it came to the World Series, he did not participate. He blew no balls. He said, "No, I'm not in on this." Right. And yet he knew about it and didn't stop it. Didn't squeal, didn't rat. And so Kennesaw said, basically, you're banned. Sure. You're done.
You just knew about, but did nothing about.
You lost your whole career.
Yeah.
So originally when we talked about Sean Payton, I said, well, he at least deserves 4 games. I didn't know he repeatedly lied. Right. And then I love that Goodell told Adam Schefter, I spoke at length to Sean Payton twice the last couple of weeks. That's right. We went back. So he got his say in court.
And had an email. Had an email where there was somebody verifying that I verified to defensive coordinator Gregg Williams $5,000 on Rodgers. Sean Payton, $5,000. So Sean Payton knew about that. Yeah. And they showed him the email. It was his email. So you knew. Just shut up. I hate using the word because be quiet, shut up, that sounds a bit more disrespectful. But in this particular instance, it's warranted. Shut up. And you know what? Listen, you cannot have this kind of stuff going on. And this bunker mentality, no, this is out the window. You know what a bunker mentality applies? When it's all in. This is not all in. You went against your own brothers. Yep. Yeah. Brett Favre, you heard who's more critical to Brett Favre than me? What you did to Brett Favre, the way you kept hitting that boy. You understand? After passes were thrown, et cetera. I agree. What you did to Kurt Warner. They got names in this report. They even targeted Cam Newton last season. Yeah, we saw that. A rookie. Yeah. A rookie. Come on, man. Go. They got to go.
Every one of them. Interesting to see how the Saints are viewed by other NFL teams now. think the ramifications of this ultimately is we won't hear about any bounty systems again in the NFL.
We won't hear about it, but it doesn't need to happen.
No, but I'm saying you think this puts a definitive end on any of it.
Yes.
The players now know this isn't a game. This is for real.
Not good news for the New Orleans Saints. The league handed down 4 suspensions yesterday, the most severe going to defensive captain Jonathan Vilma. He will be suspended without pay for the entire year. He had this to say in response to the suspension. He said, "I am shocked and extremely disappointed by the NFL's decision to suspend me for the 2012 season. Commissioner Roger Goodell has refused to share any of the supposed evidence he claims supports this unprecedented punishment. The reason is clear. I never paid or intended to pay $10,000 or any amount of money to any player for knocking Kurt Warner, Brett Favre, or any other player out of the 2009 Divisional Playoff game, 2010 NFC Championship game, or any other game. I never set out to intentionally hurt any player and never enticed any teammate to intentionally hurt another player. I also never put any money into a bounty pool or helped to create a bounty pool intended to pay out money for injuring other players. I have always conducted myself in a professional and proud manner. I intend to fight this injustice, to defend my reputation, to stand up for my team and my profession, and to send a clear signal to the commissioner that the process has failed to the detriment of me, my teammates, the New Orleans Saints, and the game." Skip, are you buying what Jonathan Vilma is saying?
You done with that?
Yes.
Okay, good. Let's start. I don't know what to believe. One side is saying night and the other side is saying day. I'm not sure I've ever seen anything quite this juxtaposed, this 180 degrees from each other. But I am now leaning toward the players because both Vilma and Will Smith spoke out yesterday and said 100% inaccurate, 100%, no wiggle room. They have no idea why they're being suspended for so long. Will Smith only 4 games, but for things that they say they did not do. Vilma saying, "I never paid or even intended to pay," and Will Smith saying, "I was never even notified of what I'm being accused of." Now, the league is saying that no player agreed to be interviewed or to even send a representative on their behalf to speak to the league. And Adam Schefter is reporting that the league source is saying that the players basically took the fifth on this. Okay, so let's step back. The authority figures were originally under fire. The coaches, the general manager, the front office. So who's to say that the players weren't just trying to protect the guilty parties here by saying, we take the fifth? Because who's to say the players never even imagined that they, the players, would be suspended for any of this or penalized at all? That they were saying, no, we don't want to talk to the league officials, to those conducting the investigation, because they didn't want to incriminate their coaches who deserve to be incriminated, starting with Gregg Williams. I am starting to lean toward Jonathan Vilma and Will Smith as saying 100% they don't get it.
I appreciate your position. I truly do. And I say this with all due respect to the players. I don't give a damn how they feel. I truly don't. And it's not because of the allegations that were ultimately levied against Gregg Williams, Sean Payton, Mickey Loomis, Joe Vitt, the linebackers coach who will be the head coach after 6 games. It's not even because of the act itself. It's because you had all this time to defend yourself. I'm sorry, I've been hearing Jonathan Vilma's name for months. Now you come out with a discussion? You accuse Skip Bayless. You accuse Stephen A. Smith and say, whoa, who, where? What are you talking about? Tell me when to show up. I will be there. What are you talking about? The commissioner wanted to talk to you. You plead the fifth. Now you want to sit there and feign your innocence? And
feign?
I don't mean it that way. What I'm trying to say is I don't believe them. And the reason I don't believe them is not because of Roger Goodell, not because of his ruling. It's because of their actions. If I am innocent, I'm not waiting for the commissioner to come down with a decision. You want to talk to me, tell me when and where to show up. I will be there. Hell, I'll meet you first. I'll buy you breakfast. Let's sit down and talk, okay? Because I'm innocent of this. I'm innocent of all the stuff that I'm hearing about. ESPN Fox, everybody has been talking about this for months, that this stuff was going down. Ultimately, the commissioner came down with a ruling that suspended your defensive coordinator indefinitely, your former defensive coordinator indefinitely. It suspended your head coach for the year. It suspended your general manager for 8 games. And we heard nothing from you. Immediately in the aftermath of those suspensions, we heard the players were next. Okay? And we heard the name Jonathan Vilma. And now you come out with a statement about your innocence. Okay. I'm sorry, I got a problem with that because, again, you have plenty of time. And not to mention, listen, this stuff and these players, y'all really, really need to grow up. The commissioner summons you. You need to talk to that man. Now, you might not want to dime somebody out, okay? You might not be completely forthcoming, but this acrimony, this kind of abrasive and acerbic attitude towards the man whose job is to steward the entire league. It's Bush League, it's childish, it's belligerent, it's unnecessary. No. You have an obligation, Skip. You have an obligation. If the man wants to talk to you, you got an obligation to talk to him. Even if you have to show up with an attorney, you got to show up. To sit there and plead the fifth, all right, this is what's coming to you. Congratulations. You happy now? You happy now? You avoided him. You didn't talk to him. You stood up. You didn't dime anybody up. Now you're suspended for the year. You happy now? Because you didn't have a conversation. Who knows what would have happened if you sat down and talked to the man?
Okay.
You brought it on yourself.
What if somebody had accused your bosses of doing something, or your producers of doing something, and you feared they were guilty, and so they came to you and said, hey, tell us what happened. What really happened?
You almost provoked me to come up and give you a hug. I'm glad you asked that question, Skip Bayless, because here's the answer. My bosses ultimately answer to the commissioner. So guess what? We got Galen Gordon and Jamie Horowitz, and we've got our bosses. Let John Skipper call me. Where you need me to meet you? What's the problem? Because it's in-house. Let's take this a different situation. Michael Vick gets in trouble because of the whole dogfighting scandal. What was the number one problem Commissioner Roger Goodell had with him? That man came and he lied to his face.
But nobody's saying that they're lying.
I know that.
Except, wait a second.
I know that.
For Anthony Hargrove, he's accused of obstructing justice. He lied to those who spoke to him.
Right. But here's where I'm going. What I'm trying to say to you is what the commissioner is saying is, I'm not the police. This is the NFL we're talking about here. This is in-house stuff. This is us. This is our shield, okay? When I brought up John Skipper, I'm talking about our shield, the ESPN shield. Now, somebody outside calls me up that has nothing to do with us. They can go kick rocks. I don't know them. But if the man that runs this show, okay, that runs this network, calls me up to his office, Skip, I'm going. I'm going. And guess what? I'm not going to lie to that man.
You're going to dime out your...
I didn't say, hold on, wait. It's not about diming out. You asked me a direct question. They all answered to him. Okay. We all answered him. Now, if
okay, wait a second now.
Go ahead.
Vilma and Will Smith knew full well who instituted the bounty program. Their defensive coordinator did.
Time out. But listen to the statement. He talked about how he had absolutely nothing to do with any of this. There was no bounty.
He didn't.
All right then.
Yeah.
Right. But you are perfectly entitled to sit before the commissioner. I had nothing to do with this. Why is my name up here? The commissioner asked you, well, who did? Commissioner, with all due respect, that's your problem. Let your investigators figure this out. I'm here to defend myself.
I don't know.
Oh, yes, he could have done it. What are they going to do, arrest him?
You know where the shield is? You know where the shield is for the Saints? It's their locker room
And that's
shield.
The problem. And that's the problem.
No, it's not the problem.
No.
It's the law of the land.
When the locker room, listen, again, I'm not encouraging anybody to dime other folks out. I am saying Jonathan Vilma's statement in defense of himself. You talk about coming late to the party. This boy is way late. I'm jumping up, raising my hand the minute you try to tell. You said there's been rumors out here for months. We were all waiting for the punishment to come down against Jonathan Vilma for 2 months now.
Stephen A., the question here is, are you buying it? Are you buying
No, we're not buying it. I'm not buying it.
That's my point. So you two separate things, that he should have went and talked to the commissioner and that he's lying.
I'm sorry, maybe it's just a street approach that I need to break this down. The fact that he delayed in defending himself, to me, is what makes him look guilty.
Thank you.
That's what I'm trying to
say.
say.
He was trying not to incriminate the people who were guilty. Gregg Williams, Sean Payton, Mickey Loomis. And furthermore,
I'm going to try this again, Skip. This unprecedented punishment, the reason is clear. I never paid or intended to pay $10,000 or any amount of money to any player for knocking Kurt Warner, Brett Favre, or any other player out of the 2009 Divisional Playoff game, 2010 NFC Championship game, or any other game. I'm sorry, what in that statement was about anybody else? That's about him.
Well, now that Wade just got suspended for a whole year.
You couldn't go to the commissioner when you were requested. You couldn't go and defend you? You can't do that?
Okay, they were not under the impression that they were under any suspicion here. They were not. And furthermore, how about Ed Werder? Do you have respect for Ed? Because I have high regard for his repertorial skills.
Yes, I do.
So now he's reporting that a Saints source is telling him that the league has completely blown all of this bounty program completely out of proportion. Okay. That it wasn't over a 3-year period, as the commissioner says in the findings, 09, 10 through 11. That it was actually only 2 home playoff games before the Super Bowl. Skip. The Kurt Warner game and the Brett Favre game. And let me finish.
Go ahead.
And Ed is reporting through the source that actually Gregg Williams provided Vilma with the $10,000 to offer to his teammates for the reward, and that Vilma then, after the first meeting, said, I don't want to do this, and gave the money back to Gregg Williams. Okay. Well, again, now the commissioner's report says that multiple sources have incriminated the players. But I'm starting to wonder about this because the evidence is a little heavier on the other side here.
We're not second-guessing Ed Werder. That's not what this is about. But you and I have both been reporters for over 2 decades. The reality of the situation is that you're going to have people going out there and giving their side, their spin. It may be accurate. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is that this statement right here from Jonathan Vilma could have been easily distributed and disseminated months ago. He didn't have, this is about him. When his name was out there front and center, the second Commissioner Goodell came down with the suspensions to Sean Payton, all right, and Gregg Williams, and then we heard Jonathan Vilma and the players are coming next. Jonathan Vilma could have stepped right up and said, before y'all even go any further, and said every word he said. But now, by the way, it was prepared by an attorney. I'm sorry, you innocent, you really got to do that? I had nothing to do with this. I really need a lawyer to speak for me?
All right,
really?
That's fair.
Come on, man.
But what's the first
Come on,
line?
I want to hear that.
Wait a second. You stole my list this morning.
I'm shocked and extremely disappointed.
I'm shocked.
Okay, so
that's the premise here. He's shocked because he didn't think he was going to be suspended for 1 game. He didn't know he was under this heavy of suspicion. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Skip Bayless.
You believe him?
Speak. Yes, I do.
You believe him?
I'm leaning toward
Time out. Adam Schefter, Chris Mortensen, John Clayton, and every reporter that has been on the scene for this story have reported ad nauseum that Jonathan Vilma and other players were next. They said to other players, every player.
So it was originally 22 out of 20 or 27.
Every player that has been punished has that excuse, but Jonathan Vilma, his name was front and center for months. Months his name has been front and center. All over the news. He's next. What is he going to get? And you wait until now to issue this statement? Too late to the party.
Scott Vegeta, who's now with the Browns, said, quote, I disagree wholeheartedly with the discipline imposed. I've yet to hear the specifics of any allegations against me, nor have I seen any evidence that supports what the NFL alleges in its press release. I look forward to the opportunity to confront what evidence they claim to have in the appropriate forum. Until then, I stand by my previous comments. I have never contributed money to any so-called bounty pool, and any statements to the contrary are false. To say I'm disappointed with the league would be a huge understatement. A strong denial. Stephen A., do you believe Roger Goodell, or do you believe the players?
Before I answer this question, I have 2 questions for you, Skip. Number one, was that statement written by a lawyer? Was that a statement? Was that the player himself, or was that a lawyer speaking on the player's behalf?
It just came from him.
Okay.
So that doesn't mean he wasn't a lawyer.
I don't know that he
it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't
no.
mean-
I just want to make sure. That's one point I made.
Right.
Number two, was he invited to the commissioner's office to speak on the commissioner's behalf and then refused to show up? Was he one of those players?
I'm assuming yes.
I don't care what they say. It means nothing to me. As far as I'm concerned, they're all guilty. All those players that the commissioner named, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not giving any of them a pass. None of them. Now, I have been on the record, Skip Bayless, as saying that I don't believe that the players deserve as much of a punishment as the authoritative figures in all of this, meaning Gregg Williams and head coach Sean Payton, and I really believe that Mickey Loomis. I don't know the man. I have nothing against the man. Yep. I just have a problem with the GM of an organization getting lesser of a penalty than the head coach. That doesn't make any sense to me. If you knew about it and the commissioner saw fit to suspend you for 8 games, why is the head coach getting a year and you're only getting 8 games? As far as I'm concerned, he should get at least a year. Now, with that being said, and me acknowledging that the players don't deserve as stiff of a penalty as the authoritative figures enforcing this policy upon them, if the commissioner summons you to the office and says, I want to talk to you, and you don't show up, it's at your own peril. You know what? I don't care what anybody says about this. I knew Jonathan Vilma when he played for the New York Jets. Seems like a credible guy, a really good guy. I got no issues with them. I got no issues with any of these players. I don't know them. I'm just telling you that if the commissioner summons you to the office, he is the steward of the league. He said, we want to talk to you. We want to interview you about what has transpired, et cetera, and you don't show up. I don't want to see all of these statements now. When you knew, especially in Vilma's case, when you knew your name was on the hit list and you knew he was coming for you and you said nothing until the penalty came down.
Well, I want to see if we can get clarification.
Yes.
Unless I'm remembering wrong, I believe Fujita did meet with the commissioner.
Okay. I don't recall.
And we're gonna get Tyler from research. I'm sure is on it right now. Okay. It's my recollection that in April he did meet with the commissioner.
I don't have that recollection. And
we'll track it down before we finish this.
Listen, obviously, if he did, that goes a long way towards modifying my position on him.
Because he had a chance to confront.
That's right. But anybody who passed on a chance, Skip, to address the commissioner's allegations and assertions, I have no sympathy for you. And if he did meet with the commissioner, then evidently the commissioner feels he's got some evidence. And I do understand those who are saying, well, you know what, these players are categorically denying this, and we have to take that into consideration.
By the way, we now have Gregg Williams, or at least a source close to him, saying he obviously met with the commissioner and that the league office has misrepresented his quotes to the commissioner and to the officials.
Okay.
And I'm told that Fujita himself did meet with the commissioner April 16th.
Okay.
So there was a meeting there.
Okay.
He did have a chance. This was obviously before Commissioner Goodell came out with the suspensions. So he listened, but he didn't.
And I find, by the way, one last point. I find it very difficult to believe. Let me tell you where they lose me, Skip. I knew nothing. Now, if you say I didn't contribute to it, you say I wasn't a part of it, but you knew nothing. They've been investigating for 3 years. They warned the organization. You got players basically saying that we were told by Gregg Williams and Joe Vitt to lie to the NFL league office. You knew nothing? No, I'm not buying that.
I'm exactly where I was when we first addressed this issue last Thursday, except I'm further dug in because the more I hear, the more I lean toward the players' side. They are in full attack mode. They're in never ever mode. Remember Palmero? And that scares me a little bit. Right. Never ever did I use.
He shook his finger and he ended up.
Except, are they in Palmero mode or are they in truth telling mode? Because it's starting to come across as I'm wanting to see some evidence now. I'm with the player. Like, show me. Don't tell me anymore. Show me.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about Anthony Hargrove later, saying that he was instructed to lie. And I told you last Thursday, it's very possible that Jonathan Vilma and others who chose not to go meet with the commissioner were trying to observe the locker room code. They were trying to protect the guilty. And in their minds, the guilty started with their coordinator and went up to their head coach and went up to their GM. So they were pleading the fifth, as was reported. Basically, they're just saying because they didn't think they were under suspicion. And when they say, I didn't know anything, they mean about contributing to a pool, like how putting their money up for the bounties. Like they're all, I think, going along with the fact that, yeah, there was a bounty program in place started by our coordinator, but we didn't willingly, enthusiastically embrace it as the commissioner has accused us of.
But they're categorically denying any involvement.
Yeah,
They're categorically denying any involvement, so they're taking it a step further than you're saying. That's number one. Number two, and more importantly, let me get a little TV generation on you. You know, I'm a big Law and Order fan. I mean, I watch it all the time. Skip. And you know, I watch these guys, and they show up to the district attorney's office. You know, they got to show up there, and they show up there with their lawyers. And when they show up there with their lawyers, okay, they have specific subjects they're willing to address. They hear the accusations levied against them. You understand? They respond in kind. If they don't want to go any further, the lawyer's right there to say, that's it for this discussion. We're not going here, okay? No, we want you to dime this person out. Maybe we'll give you a pass, give you a lesser sentence or whatever. We will. Then start whispering in each other's ear. Come in. We'll think about it. We'll get back to you. This is what happens. Now, the way I look at this, Skip, it's just logic here. Just logic. Because I'm told, because I've got some lawyers in my family, that happens all the time. So I guess the way I'm thinking, Skip, is...
Oh, you got lawyers in your family?
Yes, I do.
I know.
Yes, I do. I got lawyers in my family.
That explains a lot. That explains
I also have doctors, okay? And I also have less unsavory characters, too. I mean, what are you saying?
You're the product of corrupt lawyers and doctors. That's all I need to know.
I'm just saying, I got them on both sides of the fence, okay? I mean, it's family. You know what it is.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, if that happens in real life as it pertains to your life being on the line, I'm sorry, your career falls just a tad bit lower. You roll up into the commissioner's office with your lawyer. You're Jonathan Vilma, you're Hargrove, you're one of these, you're Fujita, you're one of these players. I'm here to talk about me. You said I did X, Y, and Z, or you're alleging that I may have done. I am not here to talk about my teammates and the organization. We're talking about me, Commissioner Goodell. You are accusing me. What is your accusation and allegation against me? Because I have every right to bring that to the table. That's all you have to do. I don't want to hear this stuff about some locker room code and all of this nonsense. It's not nonsense.
Do you think Vilma thought he was going to get suspended for a year?
I think Vilma thought he was going to get suspended for about 6 to 8 games, and it ended up being a lot less. Matter of fact, that's what I heard, that it was going to be more. He thought it was going to be less severe, but he knew something was coming down. Okay? All I'm trying to say to you is this. These are things that happen every day. Tell me what is there, what violation is there by getting your lawyer, showing up to the commissioner's office and defending yourself. They didn't do it. That's why I have no sympathy. Stand up and defend yourself. Wasn't me. You understand? Remember Eddie Murphy in the comedy movie? Hey! Wasn't me.
Okay. Is it still possible in your head, Mr. Lawyer? Is it still possible that even though they didn't stand up to defend themselves, that they are in fact innocent?
Something is always possible, but I would lean towards highly unlikely. Innocent is not a word I would associate with individuals who did not step up to the plate immediately and address their innocence. You can't come and accuse Stephen A. or Skip Bayless of doing something they emphatically know they're innocent of. Oh, you gonna warn me 2 months down the line. Stephen A., you got a suspension coming. I'm telling you right now, ESPN is about to come bring the hammer down on you because you did this. What? I'm innocent? Oh, who? Where? I got every boss's name. I'm coming to see you. What are you talking about? I'm innocent. I did not do this. None of them did that. None of them. That is not about the locker room.
Well, that's not true. Fujita did meet with the commissioner.
Fine. I'm saying to you, those who didn't do it, there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that.
All right.
Protecting.
Protecting themselves because they knew something was guilty. They were guilty about something.
Paul Tagliabue vacated the players' suspensions in the Bounty case. Stephen A., the question is for you. Did the NFL finally get it right?
I don't know whether they got it right or not. I just think it's important, Skip Bayless. This is directed at you, and it's directed at Jonathan Vilma. You know, Skip, that I've been on the record on many occasions, and I've never once talked about Jonathan Vilma's guilt or innocence. What I've talked about was how ridiculously unwise it was for him not to go to the commissioner's office and speak to the commissioner when he was summoned to his office. I thought he brought all of this on himself. But as I looked at yesterday's ruling by Paul Tagliabue, the former commissioner of the National Football League, the predecessor to Roger Goodell, first of all, I need to give a public apology to Jonathan Vilma. And I need to publicly acknowledge, Skip, that you were 100% correct. I was wrong. Wow. And it's just that simple. I owe Jonathan Vilma an apology, and I know people are not used to seeing this from a journalist. They better get over it. I'm a man, and if I'm wrong, I own up to it. Jonathan Vilma, as far as I'm concerned, was exonerated yesterday. You have other folks, my partner on radio, Ryan Rucco, and others that say, well, you know what? Paul Tagliabue acknowledged, and the NFL stated that Paul Tagliabue's decision doesn't point to any inaccuracies on their part. I don't care about that. That is ridiculous. The fact of the matter is, Roger Goodell, a commissioner I have profound respect for, suspended Jonathan Vilma without pay for an entire season. And Paul Tagliabue came in, just eradicated that, got rid of it. The suspensions have been lifted. The fine has been lifted. He's got his money back. He's allowed to play. And he is still going after Roger Goodell with a defamation lawsuit. I sat there and I assumed that if you are the NFL, a billion-dollar conglomerate, and you are telling us you got 15,000 pages of documents, emails, text messages, voicemail messages, testimony from individuals, et cetera, you have dotted your I's, you have crossed your T's. And maybe you have. And maybe you did. And as a result of that, maybe, just maybe, you could still have a case with Jonathan Vilma. Means nothing to me. This man stood up. He has proclaimed his innocence. He refused to meet with the Goodell because he thought it was a witch hunt and it was a shabby investigation. And I could not imagine that the day would ever come when such a decision by Paul Tagliabue would be rendered. The fact that it was, to me, speaks to Jonathan Vilma's innocence. And I'm using that word, innocence, because you could point the finger all you want to about how Gregg Williams and Sean Payton and these guys basically were overseers and they were just following orders. Well, if they were just following orders, as you eloquently stated, Skip Bayless, on many occasions, okay, and you're saying that's cause for them not being fined, not being suspended, not having their salaries confiscated from them, then essentially you're saying they had no business being suspended and fined to begin with, which means they're innocent and it never should have happened. That's what you acknowledged yesterday with Tagliabue's decision. So I want to sit up here on national television today and to say to Jonathan Vilma personally, I apologize for any position that I took. I was wrong. The NFL, to me, has lost an immense level of credibility in all of this. And Jonathan Vilma's credibility has has elevated by leaps and bounds. I have nothing to say other than I apologize.
Well, according to sources, the NFL believes that linebacker Jonathan Vilma offered $10,000 to any teammate that knocked Brett Favre out of the 2009 championship game. Favre told Sports Illustrated's Peter King he's not angry, but he did sense something different that day. I'm not going to make a big deal about it. In all honesty, there's a bounty of some kind on you on every play. Now, in that game, there were some plays that I don't want to say were odd, but I'd throw the ball and whack on every play. Hand it off, whack, over. and over. Some were so blatant. I hand the ball to Percy Harvin early and got drilled right in the chin. They flagged that one at least. I've always been friends with Darren Sharper, and he came up and a couple of times and popped me hard. I remember saying, "What the hell are you doing, Sharpe?" I felt there should have been more calls against the Saints. Meanwhile, Sharper on 97.5, The Fanatic in Philadelphia, this morning had this to say: "In no way do I remember anyone saying, okay, the first guy to take Brett Favre out is going to get $1,000. I just don't recall that. The thing that makes it worse is I believe they were warned earlier for the pay for performance program that was in place and nothing was done about that. I think that's a major issue the commissioner and league are upset about that. Saying that we were trying to maim guys or try to cart a guy off is just totally ridiculous."
Joins us from New Orleans. Ed, what was the reaction from the Saints players at the facility today?
Well, Saints players here completed their workout program and departed the facility Wednesday without any comment about the suspensions of Jonathan Vilma and 3 other players. But a team source who testified in the Bounty investigation told me the league's findings are exaggerated. The league report said that the Saints conducted a 3-year program. The source claimed to me it was limited to playoff games in the Superdome against Arizona and Minnesota that preceded their Super Bowl triumph in 2009. And as far as the players who were involved, they did release a couple of statements. Vilma said that the accusations against him represent a complete injustice, and he vowed to fight the suspension, appealing it through the NFLPA initially in the next 3 days. And then, of course, Will Smith said that the allegations against him are 100% false. So I wouldn't be so sure that those guys are not lined up when the season begins because of the appeals process and the potential lawsuits that could extend and delay the administration of these suspensions.
What did your source tell you about how the Bounty program began and how Jonathan Vilma became involved?
Well, the source contended it began when then defensive coordinator Gregg Williams was concerned about creating a higher level of motivation for his defensive players going into that 2009 postseason. So before a team meeting, Williams told linebacker Jonathan Vilma, the defensive captain, that he had a plan, and he provided Vilma with $10,000 that he offered in the meeting to any teammate knocking out Cardinals quarterback Kurt Warner. The source said Vilma returned the money following the meeting. And according to the same source, Williams and Vilma repeated the scenario the next week before playing against Brett Favre, who was the victim of several illegal hits and had to be helped from the field, but did manage to finish the NFC Championship game.
We'll see what happens with regards to the appeals process moving forward. Ed Werder with the latest on SportsCenter.
Joining us in studio tonight, former Saints All-Pro kick returner Tyrone Hughes, former NFL agent Doug Sinceri. Gentlemen, we have a lot to talk about. Let's get right to the report from the Washington Post, citing unnamed anonymous NFL sources. They say that Gregg Williams and even perhaps Sean Payton and Mickey Loomis could be suspended 8 games this season for their involvement in the BountyHits scandal. Tyrone, what do you think of that?
I think it's ridiculous, Fletch. I mean, if you're going to investigate the New Orleans Saints, you're going to have to investigate the entire NFL because it's been done throughout the entire NFL. It's done by position, and I think everybody's getting caught up on the word bounty, as if Gregg Williams held the money and just gave it out to these guys to say, hey, go take this guy out. First of all, it's done by position. Every position puts it up, even on the offensive guys. The offensive linemen put up money for if they get a pancake. They'll get money out of the pot. If you jump off sides, then you have to contribute money to the pot. So it's done by position. Most of the time, most coaches are holding the money because we don't want another player doing it.
But, Doug, isn't it fair to say, not to disagree with Tyrone, but I am going to disagree with Tyrone, the fact that it's against NFL rules and the players are the ones who are supposed to police the players, so therefore that is why they're in trouble because of this?
Well, I think there's 2 components. One, you got the salary cap and circumvention of the salary cap. When the salary cap came out in 1993, they had very stringent penalties for circumventing it in any way. Really harsh penalties. And the other aspect, too, is just recently the integrity of the game, trying to give the appearance that they're player safety, concussions, and that sort of thing. And you sort of have that melded up into one, and this is probably going to be maybe the biggest scandal with the NFL since the Alex Karras, Paul Hornung suspensions for gambling.
And that was full seasons for both of those in
That's
1964?
Right. Absolutely.
Yes.
1964.
Let's get back to that point, because what you were saying, I don't think anyone's disagreeing. We talked to Jim Miller, who was one of the executives when you were a member of the Saints. He says bounties have always been there, but isn't there some responsibility that the coaches and management have to take to prevent this? I think everybody knows it goes on, but they can't be part of it like they
Well,
are.
Fletch, again, we're getting caught up on the word bounty. It's not a bounty per se that you just putting a hit out on a certain guy. The money is put up. Let's take the defensive backs, for example. The money is put up in a pot. If you drop a, and it's not just in games, it goes towards practice also. If you drop a pass in practice or an interception in practice, you have to contribute to the pot. If you make an interception in practice, you get money out of the pot. At the end of the day or at the end of the year, what's done is whatever money is left in the pot, basically as a group, you go out to dinner or have a party with it. So again, I think everybody's getting caught up on the word bounty as if, okay, we put a hit out on Brett Favre. And I mean, there's so many people out there talking about, well, the Saints cheated by doing this. And I have to disagree, because I can't say you circumventing the cap with only a few $100s. I mean, although the money had grown to possibly $50,000, because obviously they didn't make their goals or do things that they were supposed to do in practice. But again, it's not just, and first of all, you don't get paid for a cheap shot. So if that's being done, or if that was done in a game and it was not between the whistle, then you don't get the money out of it anyway. So it defeats the purpose.
Obviously, this is a hot button topic. I think that you see players that side with you that say this happens in the NFL and every team should be punished. But obviously, it goes without saying that the Saints are going to be made an example of because of this. How stiff do you think this will be? You alluded to the case in 1964. I doubt these guys get the full season. Let's just start very quickly. Gregg Williams.
I think he's probably done for a half season, if not more. I mean, he could be suspended conceived for the entire year.
Sean Payton.
I would guess 8 games, 4 to 8 games. Would be a good guess.
Mickey Loomis.
Probably more, because he's the head general manager, so possibly 8 games.
Let's talk a little bit about the other hot button topic. As if this topic wasn't big enough, Drew Brees' contract not getting done. I'll go to Tyrone second and Doug first, since you were an agent. Is it perplexing a little bit that they've been working on this for a year and they couldn't get it done?
Well, most contracts get done at the deadline, but I would think you'd have had the parameters sort of set so that when you came to the deadline, you'd be very, very close. And that's one of the things that I was sort of surprised about, that they didn't close the parameters and be in a position to strike, because they actually put the franchise tag on yesterday. They didn't have to do it till tomorrow. So they knew the deal wasn't going to get done. But I think as far as the Saints are concerned, it's if they would have got the deal done, they could have probably saved Knicks, and they're going to have a problem keeping Knicks now.
Now, isn't the deadline, I thought, was March 13th?
Well, March 13th is when free agency starts. The deadline to put a franchise tag on a player is tomorrow.
Okay, great.
So they obviously didn't even negotiate today. They just slapped the franchise tag on him on Saturday.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you surprised that this deal isn't done? Just to share my opinion, I'm surprised they didn't give Brees what he wanted. If anybody seemingly deserved what he was asking for, it was Drew Brees, who was underpaid compared to Peyton Manning and Tom Brady the last few years. A guy who's meant so much on and off the field.
Well, I totally agree with you, and I think Drew Brees needs to be paid as the top player in the NFL. However, it's still a business, and Mickey Loomis and Tom Benson and the organization still needs to be able to pay other guys and have a team. So they're looking at it, or I'm assuming they're looking at it as, look, and again, it should have been talked about throughout this year to say, okay, even when they've gotten to this point, we can't afford to pay you as a top guy in the NFL, but work with us and we'll come back next year. But that's going to be a whole lot of trust on Drew Brees' part to deal with that.
I didn't get a quick rapid fire with you, so before we go, let me just ask you, you heard what Doug was talking about. How shocked would you be if Sean Payton got suspended between 4 and 8 games for the bounty hits? I know you don't like the word.
I would be very surprised. I mean, because if I didn't know, or if it has been illegal to do, then, and it's been going on and the NFL knows this has been going on, I think it should be a situation where they're saying, look, guys, from here on out, let's not do this anymore. Organizations, let's cut it, just end it. And from here on out, this is what the penalties would be. I don't think they should just come out right now and say, hey, look, New Orleans Saints, you guys, we're slapping this penalty on you right now.
All right. I think that's what's going to happen now. Yeah, that's right. All right. Doug Sinceri, Tyrone Hughes, we appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks a lot.
You don't fucking apologize for how we're going to play. there's only one best. A person without a dream never had a dream come true. It's okay to dream big dreams. It's okay. There's a lot of guys in this room that never thought they'd ever be in this situation. Never thought you'd make it in the NFL. Interview every day. That's what it is. Interview every day in life. You're here. You're here for a reason. You're here because we saw in you, and we hope we picked the right person that won't apologize for competing the way we have to compete. There may be better athletes, but not better football players. There may be better athletes, but not defensive football players that have to go into war tomorrow and play the way we fucking play. So get a dream big. I never seek to defeat the man. I am fighting. I seek to defeat his confidence. A mind troubled by doubt cannot focus on victory. Two men are equals, true equals, only when they both have true equal confidence. You know when you knock the air out of them on a berth, on a whack, on a remember, NFL's a production business, we'll never forget about it. Where are we at right now? Got a tie at the top. Got a lot of guys up at the top. Kill the hit, the body will die. Kill the hit, the body will die. We've got to do everything in the world to make sure we kill Frank Gore's hit. We want him running sideways. We want his head sideways. Little 32, we want to knock the fuck out of him. He has no idea what he's in for. When he's on the sideline, we got to turn that motherfucker over, turn the coaches over, turn the spectators over, go get that motherfucker on the sideline. Then who are you when we put you up there? When we put you out there, who are you? Production. This is production business. It's a great game. It's production business. Here we are. We set to go into the ball game. We're going to match 21 with regular. We'll match 12 with Okie. They're very little, 11 on first and second down, but should it come, it'll be 30 in Python. Penny will only be called if it becomes a run game late with 11. Understand that. We're going to tarantula them till the nose fucking bleeds. We're going to strike. We may set the record in strike calls. When we call strike, when I call strike close, I'm thinking run, but you can see the bird rabbit tip. Just because I call strike close, I'm guessing on rhythm over there, on the what ifs, play afters, play before. I'm guessing. And now you get out there, and you see that fucking running back's head? Is he scanning? I call strike close. That motherfucker's telling you pass right now. So now I got to add like a motherfucker if I'm Mike and Will. I want to add if they max protect, if they counter gap protect and try to take a two-man route, we hit fucking Smith right there. Remember me. I got the first one. Go get it. Go lay that motherfucker out. They think it's blocked, but it's not. I call strike open. I'm thinking it's pass. All of a sudden, Gore is set right there. He ain't fucking looking anywhere. Both tackles are in his fucking run stance. Gotta know. They run the ball close and knock it back to the blitzer. So I guess in both those situations, and you all make it right by what we see on Bird Rabbit. Tarantula, strike, we're going to go get them. Keys to win. Can't be this simple. No deep passes caught. It's fun to see that highlight film, but I'd cut my wrist and lay in a hot tub of water if I had to coach fucking Detroit secondary. Are you fucking shitting me? Fucking Meacham, 95 with fucking 20 yards of him. Fucking Henderson, 95 with fucking 10 yards of him. Fucking Jimmy Graham, he fucking scores. Nobody, I didn't line up on that motherfucker. Are you shitting me? When the secondary plays, everybody gets to play. No deep motherfucking passes caught. If the ball's cut underneath us, that's fine. We all got that cocksucker. But the one over top of our heads, there's no excuse. No deep passes caught. And then we're going to play the run. And we're going to swarm, We're going to dominate the line of scrimmage, and we're going to kill the fucking head. Every single one of you, before you get off the pile, affect the head. Early, affect the head. Continue, touch and hit the head. Because that fourth quarter differential that you saw in there, people say no more. We break their will. We don't break their skill. We break their will. And when we break their will, their skill goes running and hiding. We're breaking their will. Dominate on third down. We've got a big advantage there, and we're going to pressure the piss out of them on third down. Take the ball away. Huge stat what Joe just said in there. They've had a week off. They're going to come in. They're going to be shocked with our contact. They're going to be shocked with our speed. They're going to be shocked with our strip. Find ball, see ball, get ball. Can't be that fucking simple. I can kick field goals, be the best defense in that stadium. Remember the walkaways, and remember, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes to get on that bus, right back to that airport, and get ready for the next one. The mark of any good defense, and the mark of this defense in here, there's no defense in the National Football League that we monitor all year long. We're number one in the league right now when we have to play, watch this situation. Anytime our offense has turned the ball over, anytime we have played on the other side of the 50 because of a turnover or a special teams, we've walked on the field and said field goal. There's only been 2 touchdowns, okay? We fucking say field goal, field goal. And many times it was punt. The mark of a great team tomorrow is we have to play that way. They pride themselves on taking the ball away. They pride themselves this year on doing that. Should that happen, we have no control over that. But we do have control over where we take the fucking, when we get out there on the field. We do have total control of how we fucking play defense when we get out there. And we make them kick a fucking field goal. We make them kick a fucking field goal. We don't give up a fucking touchdown. And we play situational defense. The other thing is our body language, and your body language has been spectacular. It was huge last week against Detroit. Fake ass, phony ass motherfuckers. We go out there in the first half, after 2 turnovers, we make them punt once and they have to kick a field goal the other time. Outstanding on 2 turnovers in the first half. Key parts of the ball game to going in at halftime. Going in at halftime with the score right like it was, because of the way you played in those situations. Our body language, okay? Our body language, because we rushed the field and we waited for them. Never, ever, ever show an opponent weakness. Our body language and our mental toughness comes first, and then our physical toughness comes second. All right, let's take a look here. First envelope, do we always like to do the first envelope this? We always like to do it's not, it's hey, what is you? You want it? Okay, it's $200. You got to put wax all this thing back. Give that shit back to you. One wax, $200. Give it back. Give it back. One cause takeaway, $200. Give it back. 2 interceptions. Well, it's going to be interesting. This will be interesting. Give it back. Give it back. Give it back. Give it back. You got give it back. Give it back. Give it back. Keep it for insurance. All right, we've talked about this week. Everybody in this room. Every single person in this room, player and coach, is measured by the championships we win. Not where or if you were drafted. People in this fraternity, we don't care. Not by how much money you make. We don't care. Not by how many years you play. We don't care. Championships is a goal. This is the next step. Any goal that we have decided as a group, that you have decided as a group, you've fought. and fought and accomplished that goal. We set out with one goal in mind this year. The final goal in mind this year was another championship. It was another ring. Respect comes from fear. I tell you all the time, I take great pride and didn't know this. That was my birthday. That is my birthday. Only 10 years earlier than mine. But this is how you get respect in this league. We need to find out in the first 2 series of the game, the little wide receiver, number 10, about his concussion. We need to fucking put a lick on him right now. He needs to decide. We need to fucking decide. We need to decide whether Crabtree wants to be a fake-ass prima donna or he wants to be a tough guy. We need to find that out. He becomes human. He fucking take out that outside ACL. We need to decide on how many times we can beat Frank Gore's head. We need to decide how many times we can bull rush and we can fucking put Vernon Davis's ankles over the pile. We need to decide, and when they are fearing us, they give us the ball. Alex Smith in the preseason game, when you guys fucking avalanched that motherfucker, had eyes that big. You all saw him. When we got after his ass in the preseason game. We got after his ass here last year on Monday Night Football. Respect comes from them fearing us. Find ball, see ball, get ball. They'll give ball. They'll give ball when they're afraid of us. Another thing we always say in this room is never apologize for the way we compete. If you're in this room, you understand that. We don't apologize. There is a
I want to thank all of you for watching, and I really hope you subscribe. And if there's a subject you would like me to tackle for your team, make a suggestion in the comment section and we'll see about it. Also, I have a Patreon account set up now, so if you would like to support the channel in that manner as well, I have several tier incentives listed there. My goal is to get a website up and running that will provide all types of cool things for you guys. I want the website to be a reflection of the time and effort I spend and put into my videos. You subscribing here is awesome and I appreciate it. You have a million things to choose from to spend your time, and your time is valuable, but you spent some of it watching my channel and I appreciate that more than you will ever know. I also ask if you would mind sharing my videos that you enjoy on your social media sites and in any groups on Facebook that you might be a part of. The larger the channel gets, the faster I can get out videos to you, which is my ultimate ongoing goal here. Thank you so much.
VonAllen Sports.